I realized on October 1st, in order for this office to move forward, that we would have to change directions on how we deal with the media. And in order to move forward, to look for the future, the only way we can obtain that is going through change and through transparency. So this is the start of the new direction that we're going, is right now, is what we're changing. This office is facing a number of challenges. I can't tell you which is greater. I don't put a priority on them because all the challenges are important. I know that the only way that we can start this forward movement, this positive movement for the future, is picking a starting point. And that starting point is, I am starting with the recommendations, the 8 recommendations from the grand jury. That is a cross-section of Tulsa County. That's the citizens. That's their, what I would consider a mandate for this office. So that's why I'm starting, is the implementation of those 8 recommendations from the grand jury. And I will also define my specific role that I'm sitting at. Is first, my focus is on the implementation of the 8 grand jury recommendations. The second focus is to provide a stabilized workplace for our employees to continue to do their job and do them in a professional and honorable manner. And the third location, or the third job that I see that I have, is to provide a foundation to which this office can build on going into the future. So whoever sits in the sheriff chair in April will have a strong foundation to build from to going into the future. So having said that, if there's no questions, I'm out of here. So.
How are you going to do all of this when your term is going to be, unless you plan
very
on
limited. I realize that I'm under a huge time constraint, and that's why I'm focusing on the 8 grand jury recommendations. We're in contact with the subject matter experts from the external audit group, which is Community Safety Institute. So what we are implementing here will be in no way be in conflict with what their recommendations or their final reports are going to be. Hopefully, whenever that report comes out, that we'll be able to mesh what we're doing here with what is occurring with CSI. So, and I realize that as much as I would like to put everything into place right now, I know I'm under time constraints, but I'd rather take the time to do it right, so we do it right the first time, and this agency never has to go through this again.
How have you guys already started implementing those recommendations?
Our staff, or my staff, we took last week, and that was one of the reasons why I didn't do anything last week as far as contacting you guys. We took last week to look at those recommendations. I've assigned staff members to each one of the recommendations on implementation, what policy changes need to take place, what training regarding those policy changes that take place, what type of training needs to be done with that. So when an action plan is formed from each one of those recommendations, my intent is, after an action plan is formed, my intent is to release that to the public also.
How about, Rick, the whole aspect of, for example, internal affairs, people who have issues being able to come forward and get it out? It's kind of a cultural thing there. It's kind of a cultural thing there. How difficult is there to change the culture given all that's gone on for 30 years?
A cultural change. I have, whenever I took the position of Undersheriff, I met with each squad room, each squad meeting. I met with all of our employees and all of our supervisors, and I explained to them that I would be what you would be concerned, or what you would consider a change agent, is what I am. And the cultural change that takes place, it's not going to take place in 3 months, 4 months, 5 months. It's going to take place, it has to take place. What I'm hoping is what I start here, the new sheriff will continue on so that this change will actually take place.
Is the staff willing and receptive, or do they feel like they've been right through the mud?
No, the staff is looking forward to changes. Yes.
Have you given any thoughts to possibly running for sheriff?
That is certainly a consideration, Corey, but right now my sole focus is on these 8 recommendations and getting them implemented. When I make a decision on that, you all will be informed as soon as I make that decision.
Are you internally reviewing any, I know there are some names that have been holdovers that were mentioned in the internal 2009 report. You're still working here. Do you have any, do you plan to clean the whole house, or is everything done?
Everything is done. The 2009 report, everybody that was involved in that, we're done with that. We're moving forward into the future.
How about reaching out to the community? Obviously, deputies are in contact with people all the time. The Harris thing obviously didn't do any good in the community. How do you bridge that gap?
Part of that is, well, I'll talk about the fair for a moment. I'll say that once again, we can still keep the title of having the safest fair in the United States at the conclusion of this fair. But what we talked to our deputies about, this is an opportunity. We had 1.1 million people, and that was from last year. I don't know what the gate is this year. But we have an opportunity to come into contact with 1.1 million people at the fair. We wanted to make sure our deputies were aware that this is their chance to show who we really are, what kind of professionals that we truly are, and in my opinion, they upheld their bargain. Some of the reports that I got back from deputies in the fair, people were coming up from the community, from Tulsa County, saying that how much they respected what they did, how much support that the community gave them, that they're keeping them in their prayers. I quite honestly, I was quite humbled by the support from the community to our deputies working the fair.
How about the guys on patrol? Have you given them a message that, hey, when you're pulling somebody over, be gracious, be kind? What are the instructions?
Always professional.
Did you have anything to do with the decisions that were made after the thefts in the property room and discovered the K2? It's our understanding that there was no internal investigation, internal affairs investigation done. You were the undersheriff. It wasn't reported to the DA for months after. What was your role in that?
I've already talked that with District Attorney Kunstweiler and John David Luton.
What did you tell them?
Again, well, we had our reports turned in. We had the reports turned in. But again, I am focusing on moving forward towards the future and moving in a positive light.
I understand that, but it's our understanding that the internal affairs investigation did not happen, and that Chris Pierce was not placed on leave, that there was no investigation of the thefts in the property room until it came to light months later. The DA said they didn't know about it. I mean, it happened in June.
Yes, you're correct.
So,
and again,
what was your role?
This conference is regarding the 8 recommendations from the grand jury, and that's the direction that we're going to go.
So no answer on that? No comment on that then?
did you suppress the internal affairs investigation
Absolutely
into the
not,
FCK2?
ma'am. Absolutely not.
Did you say that Chris Pierce would not be put on leave during the investigation?
Okay. And again, we're going to move forward with this on the 8 recommendations.
Will there be a time later that we can
Sure.
meet and ask those questions?
Mhm.
When will that be?
whenever the internal affairs investigation is completed.
So there's one underway.
Yes.
Has that case been submitted to the DA for possible prosecution of James Pribe, the Indian
Yes, it
person?
has.
That case has been submitted
Yes.
to DA now.
Who's leading that internal investigation?
I believe Corporal Eldridge.
Has anyone been placed on administrative leave pending the outcome of that investigation?
No.
And were you told, or your counsel told, that there were several votes in the grand jury to indict you regarding this matter?
I have no knowledge of that, so I guess you can talk with Judge Nightingale.
Going back to you mentioned the CSI thing, and I know that was, I think we'd heard at some point maybe in September that would be done, and then it wasn't done in September. Do you have a updated maybe timeline on when that report will be due?
Well, I don't think CSI ever gave us a September date. The reserves in relation to the fair, but they were unable to give us that. That's why the reserves remained inactive during the fair.
So that report's still not done. It's still.
No, it's still out there,
Okay.
and I don't have a timeline from CSI.
Can you tell us a little bit more about how the fair went, as far as, do you have any overtime estimates on because this is the first one without the reserves. Was there
Right.
any estimates as far as how much overtime they would have typically ate up, and how that actually went with all full-time deputies?
Actually, Sergeant Jerry Holloway has done an excellent job on resource management at the fair, and I believe even without the reserves in there that we're going to come in right on budget for the fair.
Was there any strain in resources elsewhere, or that sort of thing during
No.
the fair?
One of the recommendations was to make internal affairs more separate from the actual department with these ongoing internal investigations. How are you guys ensuring that?
I have got one of my majors who worked internal affairs for almost 2.5 years. He is reviewing the process, so we're going to make, yes, absolutely, that would be more autonomous, so that we can implement that, and the entire process is being looked at.
Okay, so they're just reviewing it right now?
Yes.
In your statement that you had, I guess it was a couple weeks ago, you said that you were going to make a sort of a new direction.
Yes.
And from the objectives and the goals that the sheriff's office has had in the past, what were the objectives and goals of the sheriff's office that you think need to be changed? And it's bigger than policies. To me, it implies something bigger.
Well, actually, our deputies and our detention officers are prepared and ready to serve whenever they're called upon. That's the direction. I mean, servant leadership is what we should be all about. It's servant leadership. Any law enforcement agency, sheriff's office or not, any law enforcement agency, in reality, the public is our boss, and that's who we should be serving. The public, and this may sound well, it doesn't sound crass, but it's, and I can't remember where I read it, but the public deserves a type of law enforcement it demands from its law enforcement. So, yeah, absolutely, we need to go to inform. Again, it goes back to the cultural change, the servant leadership, all that.
It would seem that a lot of the recommendations in terms of the record keeping, getting this in the right file, making sure records are transferred when somebody gets moved to another position, is pretty much common sense stuff. Have some of these changes already been made, or are there unseen complexities here?
Yes, it's pretty much common sense stuff. Yes,
Okay.
I'm not, and that's what I'm not really waiting for CSI. That's why I'm in contact with them, so we don't do anything that is opposing each other. But obviously, we're gonna start changing that. I'm not gonna wait for this report to come out. So yes, commonsensical things, yes, we're doing right. One of the things that is recommendation number 4 is we're trying to find a physical area large enough to have a central repository for all records. Yeah,
There have been 20 deaths in the jail.
I'm sorry.
There have been like 20 deaths in the jail, and I'm sorry, I don't know exactly what year that date's from, but within roughly the last decade or less. Are you satisfied with the quality of healthcare that's being provided in the jail?
And see, I'm really sorry, but I'm gonna put this back to our 8 recommendations.
Well, isn't that a large part of what the sheriff's supposed to do?
Yes, but right now, this is concerning the 8 recommendations from the grand jury.